It was the 30th anniversary of my father's construction company. The party was loud, filled with partners and investors. My brother, Kyle, knocked a full glass of red wine onto the white carpet. He just laughed. I, Sarah, the accountant, the fixer, went and got the cleaning supplies. I was on my knees, scrubbing, when I heard my father's voice. Richard. He had his phone out, recording an Instagram Live. "Look at my accountant," he boomed, his voice slurring slightly. "Always cleaning up the mess. Some things never change." His business partners chuckled. Seconds later, a comment notification popped up on his screen from my sister, Haley. 3 laughing, crying emojis. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even look at my father, Richard. I just stood up. The cleaning cloth I was holding dropped from my hand to the floor, right on the wine stain. The room went silent. You could hear the ice clinking in someone's glass. I walked straight past my father, past the investors whose faces were frozen in awkward pity, and I grabbed my purse from the entry table. My phone started buzzing before I even reached my car. It was my father. I declined it. Then my brother, Kyle, declined. Then my mother, Karen, declined. I drove, not to my own apartment. I knew they had a key. I drove across town to the quiet street where my Uncle David and Aunt Linda lived. They opened the door, looked at my face, and didn't ask a single question. Aunt Linda just pointed down the hall and said, "The guest room is ready, Sarah. There are clean towels on the bed." I sat in that quiet room all night. I didn't sleep. I just watched the numbers on the digital clock change. I felt the anger, but it wasn't the hot, screaming kind. It was cold. It was clinical. It was the quiet, precise anger of an accountant who had finally found a catastrophic error in the books, an error that had been draining the company dry for years. At 8:15 in the morning, my phone lit up. A text from Haley. It didn't say, "Are you okay?" It didn't say, "Where are you?" It just said, "Why isn't the card working? I'm at the checkout trying to buy a $3,500 influencer package. It's declined. What the hell did you do?" I stared at the message. A package? Her definition of a business emergency? That cold clarity settled over me. This wasn't a family. It was a poorly managed business, and I had been its only silent investor. I typed back one single sentence. The business emergency credit card, the one in my name, has been permanently canceled. I didn't add, "I'm sorry." I didn't add, "We need to talk." I just hit send. Seconds later, she started calling, frantic, furious. I didn't answer. I just blocked her number. Then Kyle started texting. I blocked him, too. Then my father, blocked. This wasn't an emotional breakdown. It was an audit, and I was finally closing the books. You have to understand, that Instagram Live wasn't just an insult. It was a fundamental misunderstanding of my role in the family. I wasn't the one who cleaned up. I was the one who fixed. 3 years ago, my father, Richard, was about to lose his entire 30-year company. He was facing an IRS audit. He hadn't filed his payroll taxes correctly in nearly 2 years and was talking about bankruptcy. I was 25. I came into his disaster of an office, took his shoeboxes full of crumpled receipts and tear-stained napkins, and I worked for 72 hours straight. I didn't sleep. I just drank bitter coffee and rebuilt his books, line by line. I found the errors, I filed the amendments, and I single-handedly saved him from financial ruin. His way of thanking me was to give me that business emergency credit card, the one that was in my name, the one he swore was just for lumber and supplies. But for the last 2 years, it had been a slush fund. I knew because I'm an accountant. I track everything. I opened my private laptop and looked at the spreadsheet I kept. In the last 24 months, I had personally paid $32,000 of my own savings to cover their emergencies. Charges like $450 at a luxury boutique. That was Haley. Her emergency was a new handbag for an influencer event. Charges like dozens of cash advances for my brother Kyle. Project materials, he called them. They always happened on a Friday night and smelled like a bar tab. My compassion wasn't a gift, it was a line of credit, and they had been overdrafting it for my entire adult life. I know what you're thinking. Sarah, you're smart, you're an accountant. Why would you let this happen? People mistake it for weakness. It's not. There's a psychological term for it. Learned helplessness. It's what happens when you are systematically punished every time you try to set a boundary. The first time I questioned one of Kyle's advances, my father cornered me and told me I was being petty and trying to divide the family. The first time I declined one of Haley's charges, my mother, Karen, called me, weeping, saying I was selfish and breaking her heart. You get punished for saying no so many times that on a deep cellular level, you just stop trying. You learn to accept the pain just to keep the peace. You don't become weak, you become conditioned. That Instagram Live, that public humiliation, it wasn't just an insult. It was the sound of the conditioning finally breaking. It was the stupid, arrogant mistake that finally gave me permission to do what I should have done years ago. This wasn't revenge. It was an audit, and I was finally balancing the books. The backlash for canceling the card was immediate. It was also exactly what I expected. First came the 10, maybe 12 missed calls from Haley. When I didn't answer, she left a string of voice messages. They weren't sad, they were furious. Just a high-pitched scream of, "How could you do this to me?" and "You're jealous," and "I'm telling Dad." Of course, she told Dad. An hour later, my father, Richard, called. His tone wasn't apologetic. It wasn't concerned. It was the same tone he used on his employees when they'd made a mistake on a job site. It was a command. "Sarah, I don't know what kind of childish game you're playing, but you're embarrassing me. That card is tied to the business account. You're making me look bad in front of my partners. Turn it back on, now." I let him finish. I let the silence hang in the air for a second. I just said, "No, the card is in my name. The account it was tied to is closed." He started to yell, something about ingratitude and respect. I didn't listen. I just hung up the phone. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought they'd rant and rave, and then, faced with a financial wall, they would simply stop. I underestimated their capacity for escalation. I forgot the cardinal rule of dealing with narcissists. If you take away their supply, they will try to destroy the container. That afternoon, I got a text from my brother, Kyle. I hadn't blocked him yet. It was a photo. It was a photo of my home office, the apartment I paid for, the one they had a key to for emergencies. They had gone in, but they hadn't just gone in. They had destroyed it. My dual-screen monitor was smashed, glass everywhere. My file cabinet was overturned, and the contents were ripped and scattered. These weren't just magazines. These were my professional documents, client tax records, my entire life's work, shredded. My work laptop, the one I didn't take with me, was face down on the floor in a puddle of what looked like coffee. My blood didn't run hot. It went ice cold. I wasn't just looking at a tantrum. I was looking at thousands of dollars in property damage. I was looking at a violation. A second later, a caption came through from Kyle. "Cleaning up your mess. Guess you should have taken your trash with you." I just stared at the screen. They hadn't just insulted me. They hadn't just stolen from me. They had now, very stupidly, escalated this from a family drama to a criminal matter. And as an accountant, I knew one thing better than anyone, the value of a good paper trail. And he had just handed me the receipt. I forwarded the photo from Kyle to my cousin Evan with a simple text. "They are in my apartment, destroying my office. I need you to go there. Don't engage with them. Just get my passport from the desk drawer and the blue backup hard drive. That's it." He just wrote back, "On my way." I sat at my Uncle David's kitchen table, my hands perfectly still. My Aunt Linda put a cup of tea in front of me. I hadn't asked for it. I just stared at it. "Sarah," he said, his voice low, this isn't just them being cruel. This is professional." I nodded. "He's trying to destroy my ability to work." "He's trying to destroy you," David said, his voice hard. "He's panicking, and when he panics, he gets stupid and mean." He sat down across from me. "I wasn't going to tell you this. I was going to deal with Richard myself after the party, but you need to know what you're really dealing with." He paused. "Richard came to me 6 months ago, said his company, the one he was just celebrating, had a cash flow problem, said he needed $10,000 just for 30 days to make payroll before a big check cleared." I didn't say anything. I already knew where this was going. "It's been 6 months, Sarah," David said. "Not a dime. Every time I ask, he says the check is delayed, or you know how clients are. He borrowed it from me, knowing full well he'd never pay it back." I looked at him. "He didn't borrow it from you, Uncle David. He stole it, just like he's been stealing from me." That word, stole, it changed the air in the room. This was no longer a disagreement. It was a pattern. I picked up my phone. I didn't call the police. That was an emotional move. I needed a clinical one. I looked up and dialed the number for a business litigation attorney my old boss had recommended. A woman answered. "Law offices?" "Yes," I said, my voice perfectly steady. "I need to book an emergency consultation. My name is Sarah, and I'm an independent accountant. I believe my primary client, who is also my father, is actively sabotaging my business and has just committed felony destruction of property." The phone call was short. The lawyer, Miss Hayes, was sharp. She told me to document everything, file a police report for the damages, and, most importantly, freeze your credit, Miss Sarah, immediately, right now, this second. She said, "If he's willing to destroy your office, he's willing to destroy your name." I hung up, opened my laptop, and went to the credit bureau website. My Uncle David sat with me. "This seems extreme," he said. "It's just an audit," I replied, my fingers flying across the keys. I paid the fee to pull my full, comprehensive credit report. The file loaded. My uncle leaned in. "What is it?" he asked. "A few late payments? A card you didn't know about?" I couldn't speak. I just pointed at the screen. My hand was shaking now. For the first time, I was shaking. It wasn't a $20,000 credit card. It wasn't a $5,000 personal loan. It was a business loan, a commercial line of credit, for $250,000. It was taken out 8 months ago from a bank I'd never heard of. And then I saw my name. I wasn't just listed on it. I was the personal guarantor. I, Sarah, 28 years old, with $32,000 in savings, had personally guaranteed a $250,000 loan for Richard's failing company, a company he had just thrown a lavish party for. "Sarah," my uncle whispered, "did you sign this?" I just shook my head, my eyes scrolling down the page. There, in the status column, was a bright red flashing word, default. The loan had defaulted 3 days ago, which meant that right now, as of this morning, the bank wasn't looking for Richard. They were looking for me, the guarantor, for $250,000. He didn't just insult me," I whispered. I finally understood. The party, the Instagram Live, the humiliation. It wasn't just arrogance. It was a setup. He was discrediting me, painting me as the messy one, the failure. So when this all came crashing down, who would believe me? The messy accountant or the 30-year business veteran? "He forged my signature," I said. The words tasted like acid. "He used my professional license, my name, and he forged my signature to save his company." I started to laugh. It was a terrible, dry sound. My uncle looked terrified. "Sarah?" "He didn't just throw me under the bus, Uncle David," I said, the cold, clinical clarity returning, sharper this time, lethal. "He strapped me to the engine." I picked up the phone and called Miss Hayes, the lawyer, back. "I've pulled the report," I said. "And?" "It's not credit card fraud. It's loan fraud. $250,000. He forged my signature as the guarantor." There was a long, sharp silence on the other end of the line. Miss Hayes finally spoke, and her voice had no warmth in it at all. "Miss Sarah," she said, "this is no longer a business dispute. What you are describing is multiple federal crimes. This isn't just about your destroyed office anymore. This is about your entire future." My mother, Karen, showed up at my Uncle David's house that evening. She didn't call first. She just appeared on the doorstep, looking small and wrecked. Her eyes were red, her hands were shaking. She wasn't the composed, judgmental woman from the party. She was a ghost. My Aunt Linda let her in, and my mother just stood in the hallway, twisting the strap of her purse. "Sarah," she whispered, "please, you have to do something." I just looked at her. I didn't offer her tea. I didn't offer her a seat. "Do something about what, Mom?" "Your father, Richard, she stammered, "he's losing his mind. The bank called him. An investor called him. He said you're ruining him. You're ruining the family." She was begging me, the mess, the cleaner, to fix this. I felt nothing, no pity, no rage, just an absence. "Did you know about the loan?" I asked. My voice was flat. She flinched, like I'd slapped her. "What loan? He borrows." "The $250,000 loan, Mom. The one he defaulted on. The one he forged my signature to get." Her face crumpled. That was the answer. She knew. Maybe not the details, not the amount, but she knew. And in that moment, I saw her for what she was. Not just a co-conspirator, but a different kind of victim. We call them passive enablers. It's a specific kind of psychological cage. A passive enabler isn't quiet because they agree with the abuser. They're quiet because they are terrified of the abuser. My mother's entire life, her home, her car, her friends, her status, was tied to Richard. For decades, her financial and emotional survival depended on her violence. She wasn't just his wife. She was his prisoner, trapped by a dependency so deep she could no longer tell the difference between his survival and her own. It wasn't an excuse. It didn't make her innocent, but it made her pathetic. And it made me realize my father was the true solitary black hole that everyone had been circling. "He told me he would fix it," she finally cried, the words tumbling out. "He said you would understand, that you were part of the company." "I am not part of his company." "He borrowed from other partners too," she confessed, as if this somehow made it better. "He told them you were managing the new accounts, that your professional reputation was on the line. He was using your name to keep them calm." I just stared at her. He hadn't just used my signature. He'd used my entire professional identity as a shield. As on cue, my phone rang. I looked at the screen. "Richard?" I answered it. I put it on speaker. My mother's eyes went wide with panic. "Don't!" Before she could finish, my father's voice, thick with rage and whiskey, exploded from the phone. What did you do? I just got a call from the bank. You're going to jail, Sarah. I'm suing you. I'm suing you for slander, for defamation, for... He was just ranting, a cornered animal snarling. I waited for him to take a breath. And then, in the dead quiet of my uncle's hallway, I spoke. My voice was so cold, so calm, it cut right through his. "I don't think you'll be suing anyone, Richard." He stopped. "As of an hour ago," I continued, "Miss Hayes, my attorney, has sent a full package to the bank's fraud department. It includes the forged signature analysis, my complete credit report, the photographs of my destroyed office, and, for context, the Instagram live video of you humiliating me at the party." I heard him breathing on the other end, that fast, shallow breath of pure panic. Oh, I added as a final thought, I also forwarded that same package to your senior partner, the one who's also Uncle David's friend, the one who watched me scrubbing the floor. Sarah, His office confirmed they received it. Good luck, Richard. I hung up the phone. I looked at my mother. Her face was white. You should go, I said, and I turned around and walked away, leaving her standing alone in the hall. The fallout wasn't a slow burn. It was an implosion. That package I sent to the bank and to my father's senior partner was, as my lawyer put it, lethal. The bank immediately froze all of the company's assets, pending a full fraud investigation. That partner, the one who was my Uncle David's friend, didn't just pull his investment. He filed his own lawsuit against Richard for fraud and misrepresentation, using my name and professional license to secure his trust. My father's 30-year company, his entire identity, the monument to his ego, collapsed in less than 2 weeks. It was just a house of cards, built on bad debt and my forged signature. Richard was facing multiple federal charges. My brother, Kyle, who was only a project manager because his father signed the checks, was now, for the first time in his life, unemployed. My sister Haley, the influencer, realized the second the money tap was truly permanently off. She packed her bags, didn't tell anyone where she was going, and simply disappeared, probably looking for a new sponsor. And my mother, Karen, she didn't stay with Richard. She couldn't. There was nothing left. She quietly moved into her sister's spare bedroom across the state. I didn't celebrate. I didn't send a single "I told you so." I just worked. I took my $32,000 in savings, the money I had managed to protect, and I rented a small, clean office on the 3rd floor of a quiet building downtown. I used that money to start my own accounting firm. Just me, a new laptop, and a sign on the door that read, Sarah, Accounting for Small Business. My clients weren't big, arrogant developers. They were bakers and mechanics and graphic designers, people who, like me, were just trying to build something honest. I was in my new office late one night, looking out the window at the city lights. I thought about my father's ledger, the one I used to balance. It was all deficits and liabilities, disguised as a family. That's when I finally understood. We get so caught up in the idea of blood. We're told that blood is thicker than water. But what they don't tell you is that sometimes blood is just a chain. It's an obligation, a debt you never agreed to pay. I learned that true family isn't something you're born into. It's something you build. It's not about blood. It's about respect. It's about who shows up when you're scrubbing the wine from the carpet. It's about the people who, when you are at your lowest, don't hand you a rag, but help you stand up. I lost a family, yes, but I finally found my balance sheet. And for the first time in my entire life, I was finally, truly in the black.